The Earth was dying. Everyone knew it. The sun had grown weak and cold. The oceans had turned to poison. The air had become thick with dust and death. Humanity had only one choice left. They had to leave their home forever. Commander Taiho Park stood on the observation deck of the Ark 1. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. Behind him, through the thick glass window, he could see Earth for the last time. The blue planet that had given birth to humanity was now brown and gray. It looked like a dying animal taking its final breaths. 12 massive ships floated in space around him. They called them the Ark Fleet. Each ship was 5 kilometers long and carried almost 1 million people. 10 million humans in total? They were the last of their kind. Everyone else had died on the surface below. Taiho pressed a button on his communicator. His voice echoed across all 12 ships. "This is Commander Park. We are leaving now. Our destination is the Andromeda Corridor. The journey will take 300 years. We will sleep in cryo chambers until we arrive. When we wake up, we will find a new home. We will survive. Humanity will continue." One by one, the great engines of the Ark Fleet came to life. Blue fire erupted from their backs. The ships began to move away from Earth, slowly at first, then faster and faster. Within hours, Earth became just another star in the darkness. Taiho walked through the long corridors of Ark 1. On both sides, he saw thousands of cryo chambers. Inside each one, a human being slept in frozen peace. Doctors, engineers, farmers, teachers, children, all of them dreaming of a future they might never see. He stopped at one chamber and looked inside. A young woman slept there. Her name was Hannah Yoon. She was only 25 years old. She had been a lieutenant in the Earth Defense Force. Taiho had chosen her personally for this mission. He saw something special in her eyes. A fire that refused to die? "Sleep well, Lieutenant," he whispered. "I hope the universe is kinder to you than it was to us." Taiho entered his own cryo chamber. The cold mist surrounded him. His eyes grew heavy. As he fell into the long sleep, he wondered what the galaxy would look like when they woke up. He could never have imagined the horror that awaited. While humanity slept, the galaxy burned. The Velthari came from the dark spaces between stars. No one knew where they originated. They were insectoid creatures with black shells and red eyes. They stood 3 meters tall, on 6 legs. Their mouths dripped with acid. Their claws could cut through metal like paper, but their bodies were not what made them terrifying. It was their minds. The Velthari shared one consciousness. They called it the Hive. Every Velthari was connected to every other Velthari through invisible waves of thought. When one saw something, all saw it. When one learned something, all learned it. They moved as one creature with 1 billion bodies. At the center of the Hive sat the Queen Eternal. She was ancient beyond measure. Some said she had lived for 10,000 years. Her body was massive, filling an entire chamber in the heart of their home world. She could not move, but she did not need to. Her mind controlled everything. Every soldier, every worker, every ship in her fleet obeyed her will without question. The Velthari had one goal: conquest. They believed the galaxy belonged to them. All other species were either slaves or food. The first to fall were the Orani. They were a peaceful species. They looked like tall, thin humans with silver skin and large purple eyes. They had no weapons. They had no armies. They believed in harmony and art and music. The Velthari burned their cities in a single day. Those who survived became slaves, forced to work in mines and factories until they died. Next came the Fen Coalition. The Fen were warriors. They had fought wars among themselves for thousands of years. They thought they were strong. They thought they could resist. The Velthari proved them wrong. The war lasted 3 years. When it ended, not a single Fen remained alive. The Velthari had erased them completely. World after world fell. Species after species vanished. The Velthari spread across the galaxy like a plague of locusts. They consumed everything in their path. Those who surrendered became slaves. Those who fought became examples. The Queen Eternal sat in her chamber and smiled with her many mouths. She sent a message across all conquered worlds. There is no hope. There is no escape. There is only the hive. Submit or die. For 300 years, no one challenged her words. The galaxy lived in fear and silence. Civilizations that had existed for millions of years bowed their heads and accepted their chains. Freedom became a forgotten word. Hope became a dangerous dream. But deep in the cold darkness of space, 12 ships drifted silently. The Velthary scanners had detected them once, long ago. A patrol ship had passed close to the Ark fleet. The commander had seen the strange vessels on his screen. He had reported them to the hive. Unknown ships. No life signs detected. No weapons. No engines active. Appears to be debris. Recommendation: ignore. Queen Eternal had agreed. Dead ships were not worth her attention. She had a galaxy to rule. It was the greatest mistake she would ever make inside those ships. 10 million humans slept in frozen silence. Their hearts beat once per hour. Their dreams were long and deep. They knew nothing of the Velthary. They knew nothing of the suffering that surrounded them. They only knew the darkness of dreamless sleep. But beneath that sleep, something remained. Something the Velthary could never understand. It was not a weapon or a technology. It was something older and more powerful. It was the human spirit, and it was about to wake up. The alarm was soft at first. Then it grew louder. Red lights began to flash in the darkness. A computer voice spoke in calm tones. Emergency revival initiated. Cryo chamber malfunction detected. Automatic awakening in progress. Hana Yun opened her eyes. The world was blurry and cold. Her body felt like stone. She could not move her fingers. She could not feel her legs. For a long moment, she wondered if she was dead. Then the pain came. It started in her chest and spread through her entire body like fire. She gasped and choked as warm air filled her frozen lungs. The cryo chamber door slid open with a hiss. Hannah fell forward onto the metal floor. She lay there for several minutes, shaking and coughing. Slowly, feeling returned to her limbs. She forced herself to stand. The corridor was dark. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. Hannah looked around and saw thousands of cryo chambers stretching in every direction. Inside each one, a human being remained frozen and still. "Hello?" she called out. Her voice echoed in the silence. No one answered. Hannah made her way to the nearest computer terminal. Her legs were weak and she had to hold the walls for support. When she reached the terminal, she pressed her hand against the scanner. The screen flickered to life. Lieutenant Hannah Yun. Arc 7. Status awakened. Time elapsed since departure. 312 years, 4 months, 17 days. Hannah stared at the screen. 300 years. She had been asleep for 300 years. Everyone she knew on Earth was dead. Everything she remembered was gone. She was alone in the middle of space, surrounded by sleeping strangers. She wanted to cry. She wanted to scream. But she was a soldier. She pushed her feelings down and focused on the mission. Computer, what caused the malfunction? Navigation system error? Arc 7 has drifted off course. Emergency revival protocol activated for senior officers.
Ow!
How many others are awake? 0. Lieutenant Yun is the only successfully revived crew member. Hannah closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She was alone, but she would not give up. She had a job to do. She spent the next several hours exploring the ship. The Ark was massive, filled with enough supplies to support 1 million people for decades. The engines were offline but undamaged. The other cryo chambers were functioning normally. She could manually revive other crew members if she needed to. Then she found the signal. It was coming from deep space. A weak transmission on an unknown frequency. Hannah adjusted the sensors and listened. The voice was strange. It did not sound human, but she could understand the words. "Please help us. We are dying. Our ship is damaged. The Velthary are hunting us. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us." Hannah did not know what a Velthary was. She did not know who was sending the message. But she knew one thing. Someone needed help. And she was going to give it. She ran to the medical bay and found the manual revival controls. She selected 2 names from the crew roster: Chief Engineer Wujinbeek and Security Officer Mingyi Kong. She had served with both of them before the mission. She trusted them with her life. The revival process took 4 hours. When Wujin opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was Hannah standing over him with a cup of water. "Welcome back to the living," she said with a small smile. "We have work to do." Wujin was a large man with rough hands and a kind face. He had spent 20 years building starships before the mission. There was nothing mechanical he could not fix. Minji was different. She was small and quiet, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been a Special Forces operative. She could kill a man with her bare hands in 3 seconds, but she also had a warm heart that she hid behind a cold mask. Hannah explained the situation, the malfunction, the 300 years, the distress signal. Both of them listened without interrupting. "So we are going to rescue aliens," Wujin said slowly. "Aliens that we know nothing about, in a galaxy that we know nothing about, while being hunted by something called the Velthary that we also know nothing about." "Yes," Hannah said. Wujin grinned. "Sounds fun? Let us go." They brought the engines online and followed the signal. Within hours, they found the source. It was a small ship, badly damaged. Holes covered its hull. Smoke poured from its engines. It was barely holding together. Hannah docked the Ark next to the dying vessel. She and Minji put on spacesuits and crossed over. What they found inside broke their hearts. The Irani were beautiful creatures. They had silver skin and large purple eyes filled with sadness. There were only 12 of them left. Men, women, and children huddled together in the darkness. Their clothes were torn. Their bodies were covered with wounds. An elder approached Hannah. He was old and frail, but his voice was steady. "You are not Velthary." "What are you?" "We are human," Hannah said. "We came to help." The elder fell to his knees and wept. "In 300 years, no one has helped us. Everyone is too afraid." They brought the Irani aboard the Ark. They gave them food, water, and medical care. As the elder recovered his strength, he told them everything. The rise of the Velthary. The fall of the galaxy. 3 centuries of slavery and death. Hannah listened to every word. Her face grew harder with each sentence. When the elder finished, silence filled the room. "They cannot be stopped," the elder whispered. "They are too many. Too powerful. The hive sees all. Knows all. Resistance is death." Hannah stood up. Her eyes burned with a fire that the Irani had not seen in any species for 300 years. "Then they have not met humanity," she said. "We do not bow to tyrants. We do not accept chains. We fight until we win or until we die." She turned to Wujin. "Wake the fleet. All 12 arcs, every single human being." Wujin's eyes went wide. "All 10 million? All 10 million. Hannah looked out the window at the stars. "The galaxy has been asleep for too long. It is time to wake up." The awakening had begun. The awakening took 3 weeks. One by one, the cryo chambers opened across all 12 arcs. 10 million humans gasped back to life. They coughed. They shivered. They cried when they learned the truth. Earth was gone. 3 centuries had passed. They were alone in a hostile galaxy, but humans are strong. They grieve, and then they act. Commander Taiho Park emerged from his chamber with fire in his old eyes. He listened to Hannah's report in silence. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "So we have a war to fight," he said. "Good. I was getting tired of sleeping." Within days, the Ark fleet transformed. Storage bays became training centers. Cargo holds became weapons factories. Engineers worked around the clock, building guns and armor from mining equipment and spare parts. Doctors treated the Irani refugees and learned everything they could about alien biology. But the most important work happened in a small room on Arc-3 Captain Junho Shin had. been a naval strategist on Earth. He had spent his entire life studying warfare. Now he sat surrounded by holographic displays, analyzing every piece of data the Irani could provide about the Velthari. "They are strong," he muttered to himself. "Very strong. Their ships are organic. They can heal damage. They can adapt to weapons. Their numbers are endless." Mingi stood beside him, watching the displays. "You sound like you admire them." "I respect any enemy that has conquered a galaxy," Gunho replied. "But respect does not mean fear. Every enemy has a weakness. I just need to find it." He studied for days without sleep. He watched recordings of Velthari battles. He read reports from destroyed civilizations. He interviewed the Orani elder again and again, asking questions that seemed strange and unimportant. Then, on the 7th day, he smiled. "I found it." He gathered the fleet commanders together and explained, "The Velthari hive was their greatest strength, but also their greatest weakness. Every soldier was connected to a command ship. The command ship received orders from the Queen Eternal and transmitted them to all nearby units. Without the command ship, the soldiers became confused. They could not think for themselves. They did not know what to do." "Destroy the command ship," Junho said, "and the swarm falls apart." Taiho nodded. "But how do we get close enough? Their defenses must be strong." "They are," Junho agreed. "No organized fleet has ever penetrated them. But we are not going to use an organized fleet." He pulled up a new display. "We are going to use chaos." The Velthari hive was perfect for coordinated attacks. Every unit moved together in beautiful patterns. They could predict any formation. They could counter any strategy. But they had one blind spot. They could not understand randomness. They could not predict what they could not calculate. "Humans are individuals," Junho explained. "We do not need orders to act. We can improvise. We can be unpredictable. If we attack without a plan, they will not know how to respond." It was a crazy idea. It was a dangerous idea. It was also their only hope. They chose Velo Station as their target. It was a Velthari supply base at the edge of their territory. 300 organic warships protected it. At its center sat a massive command vessel, pulsing with red light. Nyansho was 23 years old. She had been a racing pilot on Earth before joining the military. She was fast, reckless, and absolutely fearless. When Gunho asked for volunteers to lead the attack, she was the first to raise her hand. "I have been sleeping for 300 years, she said with a grin. "I need to stretch my legs." 300 humans volunteered for the mission. They flew small mining shuttles that had been modified with weapons. They were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. They had no armor. They had no shields. But they had something the Velthari could not understand. They had freedom. The attack began at dawn. The human shuttles burst from hyperspace in a scattered formation. There was no pattern, no organization. Each pilot flew however they wanted, wherever they wanted. The Velthari were confused. Their sensors detected 300 targets moving in 300 different directions. The hive tried to coordinate a response, but there was nothing to coordinate against. Every time they moved to intercept one shuttle, 2 more slipped past. Nain flew like a demon. Her shuttle danced between enemy ships, dodging plasma blasts by centimeters. She spun, rolled, and twisted in ways that no Velthari could predict. Their targeting systems could not lock onto her. She was too fast, too wild, too human. "Come on, bugs." She screamed into her communicator. "Is that all you have?" The Velthari command ship saw her coming. It launched a wave of fighters to intercept her. 50 organic vessels swarmed toward her position. Any other pilot would have retreated. Nain accelerated. She flew straight into the swarm. Fighters exploded around her as she weaved through their formation. Acid sprayed against her hull. Claws scraped against her windows. She did not slow down. The command ship filled her viewport. It was enormous, covered with pulsing veins and glowing eyes. It was the ugliest thing she'd ever seen. "This is for Earth," she whispered. She fired every weapon she had. Missiles, plasma cannons, even her emergency flares. Everything hit the command ship at once. The explosion was blinding. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Velthary swarms stopped moving. All across the battlefield, organic ships began to drift. Soldiers inside them chittered in confusion. They turned in circles. They crashed into each other. Without the command ship, they were nothing but animals. The human shuttles regrouped and began to pick them off one by one. Within hours, Velo's station was silent. 300 Velthary ships floated dead in space. The humans had lost 57 pilots. Nain was not one of them. She landed her battered shuttle in the Ark Bay and climbed out with a broken arm and a bloody smile. Did we win? She asked. Teho was waiting for her. His eyes were wet with tears he would not let fall. We won. For the first time in 300 years, someone defeated the Velthary. News of the battle spread across the galaxy. Slaves whispered it in the mines. Refugees shared it in hidden camps. The Irani elder fell to his knees and laughed like a child. They can be beaten, he cried. The monsters can be beaten. The Queen Eternal received the report in her chamber. For the first time in centuries, she felt something strange. It took her a moment to recognize it. It was fear. Find these humans, she commanded her hive. Find them and destroy them. Leave nothing behind. The war had begun. The message traveled faster than light itself. It passed from ship to ship, from planet to planet, from slave to slave. It carried only 7 words, but those words changed everything. Sleepers have awakened. They are fighting back. On mining colonies across the galaxy, Irani workers stopped their machines and looked at each other with wide eyes. In underground bunkers, the last survivors of forgotten species dared to hope again. Even the Velthary noticed something different. Their slaves moved slower. Their prisoners smiled. Something had shifted in the universe. Commander Taiho understood this moment better than anyone. He gathered his officers in the command center of Arquan. We won a battle, he said, but we cannot win this war alone. The Velthary have billions of soldiers. We have 10 million people. If we fight them directly, we will lose. Hannah nodded. So what do we do? Taiho pointed at a galactic map. Thousands of red dots covered it, marking Velthary-controlled worlds. But scattered among them were tiny blue dots. Hidden colonies. Refugee camps. Resistance cells that had survived for centuries in the shadows. We do not need to defeat the Velthary ourselves, Taiho said. We need to give the galaxy the tools to defeat them. We need to start a rebellion. Dr. Yoon Bi-han was a small woman with glasses and messy hair. She had been a xenobiologist on Earth, studying alien life forms from distant planets. Now she studied the Velthary. Her communication is chemical, she explained to the War Council. They use pheromones to transmit thoughts and orders. The Queen Eternal produces a master pheromone that controls everything. Every Velthary in the galaxy is addicted to it. Without it, they cannot function. Can we block it? Junho asked. Eunbi smiled. Better. We can corrupt it. She had been working for weeks on a special device. It looked like a small metal box with a glowing blue core. When activated, it would release a counter-pheromone that disrupted Velthary communication. Soldiers would stop receiving orders. Workers would become confused. The hive would begin to fracture. It's not a weapon, Yunbi said. It is a key. A key to freedom. The question was how to distribute it. The Velthary controlled all space travel. Their patrols watched every hyperspace lane. Any human ship would be detected and destroyed. That was when Jiho Quan raised his hand. Jiho was not like the other officers. He did not wear a uniform. He did not attend meetings. He spent most of his time in the shadows, watching and listening. Before Earth died, he had been an infiltration specialist. His job was to go where no one else could go and do what no one else could do. I will take the devices, he said quietly. I will get them to the slave worlds. Taiho frowned. How? The Velthary will detect any human ship. Jiho smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Who said anything about a human ship? He had a plan. A crazy, dangerous, possibly suicidal plan. He would capture a Velthary patrol vessel, disguise himself as cargo, and travel from world to world under their own flag. He would plant the devices in secret and disappear before anyone noticed. "You will die," Minji said flatly. Maybe Jiho agreed, "but I will take a lot of them with me." The mission took 3 months. Jiho and a team of 12 volunteers traveled to 47 worlds. They planted devices in mines, factories, and military bases. They made contact with local resistance groups. They trained slaves to use weapons that had been hidden for generations. Not everyone survived. 7 of Jiho's team were killed. 2 were captured and executed. But they never stopped. They never gave up. And slowly, the galaxy began to change. On the Irani homeworld, slaves rose up against their masters. The pheromone disruptor confused the Velthari guards long enough for the prisoners to overwhelm them. By morning, the Irani flag flew over their capital for the first time in 3 centuries, on a dozen other worlds. Similar rebellions erupted. The Fen were gone, but their cousins, the Fenari, still survived in hidden caves. They emerged with ancient weapons and burning hatred. The Torvasi, a race of giant stone-skinned warriors, broke their chains and crushed their overseers with bare hands. The Velthari sent armies to crush the rebellions. Some succeeded. Many did not. The disruptors made coordination impossible. Units attacked each other by mistake. Reinforcements arrived at wrong locations. The perfect hive was falling apart. Minji Kong traveled to a secret meeting on a neutral asteroid. Representatives from a dozen species had gathered there. They looked at her with suspicion and hope. "Why should we trust you?" an Irani leader demanded. "Humans were sleeping while we suffered. You did nothing for 300 years. Amand. Minji met his eyes without flinching. "You are right. We slept through your pain. We cannot change that. We cannot undo what was done." She paused. "But we are awake now, and we do not abandon our friends." She reached into her bag and pulled out a data crystal. "This contains everything we know about Velthari weaknesses. Ship designs, communication frequencies, battle tactics. We give it freely, without conditions." The representatives murmured among themselves. The Irani leader took the crystal and examined it. "Why?" he asked. "Why help us? What do you want in return?" Mingi smiled sadly. "We want the same thing you want. Freedom. Peace. A galaxy where children do not grow up in chains." She stood up straight. "We are offering an alliance, not as masters and servants, as equals. As partners." The vote was not unanimous. Some species still feared the Velthari too much. Some did not trust humans. But enough agreed. The Galactic Liberation Alliance was born. Taiho received the news with quiet satisfaction, but he knew the hardest part was yet to come. The Queen Eternal had finally recognized the threat. She was gathering her forces. Every ship, every soldier, every resource in her empire was being called back to crush the rebellion once and for all. "She is coming," Junho warned. "The final swarm. 10,000 warships. Maybe more." Taiho looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were fighting for their freedom. They were counting on humanity to stand with them. "Then we better be ready," he said. "Because we are not going anywhere." The final battle was coming. Nova Irani was a beautiful world. It had blue oceans and green forests and mountains that touched the clouds. The Irani had chosen it as the capital of the new alliance. Here, refugees from 100 worlds had gathered. Here, the free species of the galaxy made their last stand, and here the Velthari came to end them. The swarm arrived at dawn. 10,000 organic warships darkened the sky like a living storm. They blotted out the sun. They filled every corner of space. Their red eyes glowed with hunger and hate. Admiral Junho stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship. Human officers worked beside Irani navigators and Fenari gunners. For the first time in galactic history, different species fought side by side. "Are all ships report ready?" a communications officer announced. Junho nodded. "Very well. Send this message to the fleet. Today we fight for everyone who has suffered under the Velthari. Today, we fight for everyone who will be born free. Hold the line, trust each other, and remember why we are here. The battle began with fire. Velthari ships launched waves of acid missiles. Alliance vessels responded with plasma cannons and railguns. The space between the fleets became a hell of explosions and debris. Ships died by the dozens on both sides. Neoncho led the fighter squadrons. She had recovered from her wounds at Velos Station, but new scars covered her face. She did not mind. She said they made her look interesting. All fighters, follow my lead. She shouted, we punch a hole through their lines. We give our ground troops time to evacuate the civilians. Her squadron dove into the enemy formation. Velthari interceptors swarmed around them. Pilots screamed and died, but they kept fighting. They kept pushing forward. Every second they bought meant more lives saved on the surface below. On the ground, Minji Kong commanded the evacuation. Thousands of refugees streamed toward underground shelters. Orani children cried for their parents. Fenari elders helped Torvasi wounded walk. It was chaos and fear and desperate hope. Ah! Keep moving, Mingi shouted. Do not stop. The shelters are close. A Velthari drop pod crashed nearby. Soldiers poured out, their claws dripping with acid. Mingi drew her weapon and fired. The first 3 fell before they could take a step. The 4th reached her. She dodged its claw and drove her blade through its eye. It screamed and died. I said, keep moving. She repeated. Her voice did not shake. Her hands did not tremble. She was a wall between the enemy and the innocent, and she would not break. In space, the battle turned against the Alliance. The Velthari had too many ships, too many soldiers. For every one they destroyed, 2 more took its place. Juno watched the tactical display with grim eyes. They were losing. Slowly but surely they were losing. Admiral Hannah said softly, Jiho's team has reached the target. Junho looked up. There was still one chance. While the battle raged, Jiho Kwan had led a small team on a secret mission. They had traveled through hyperspace, avoiding all patrols, to reach the Velthari homeworld. Their target was the Queen Eternal herself. Jiho moved through the dark tunnels of the Hive world. His team had been killed one by one. Only he and Yunbi remained. They were wounded, exhausted, and surrounded by enemies. But they had come too far to stop. How much farther? Jiho whispered in by checked her scanner. The Queen's chamber is just ahead. But there are thousands of guards. Jiho smiled his cold smile. Then we better not get caught. They crept through the shadows like ghosts. Velthari soldiers passed inches away from them. The air was thick with pheromones that made their heads spin, but they kept moving. They kept climbing. Finally, they reached the chamber. The Queen Eternal was enormous. Her body filled the entire room like a mountain of flesh and chitin. Thousands of cables connected her to the Hive network. Her many eyes were closed in concentration. She was directing the battle, sending commands to every ship in her fleet, unned by pulled out the final device. It was larger than the others, more powerful. It did not just disrupt pheromones. It replaced them. If I upload this directly to her neural network, Yunbi explained, it will spread to every Velthari in the galaxy instantly. They will receive a new command. A final command. What command? Jiho asked. Yunbi looked at the Queen with something like pity. Stand down. The war is over. You are free? Free? Jiho frowned. You want to free them? After everything they have done? They did not choose to be monsters, Yunbi said quietly. The Hive chose for them. They have never known anything else. They are slaves too, in their own way. She looked at Jiho. We came here to end tyranny. All tyranny. Even theirs. Jiho was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. Do it. Yunbi connected the device to the Queen's chamber. The upload began. The Queen Eternal's eyes snapped open. For the first time in 10,000 years, she felt something invade her mind. She tried to fight it. She tried to scream, but it was too late. The new signal spread across the galaxy at the speed of thought. On Nova Orani, Velthari soldiers stopped fighting. They lowered their weapons. They looked around in confusion, as if waking from a long dream. In space, warships stopped firing. They drifted silently, their crews no longer receiving orders, no longer knowing what to do. On every world and every corner of the galaxy, the same thing happened. The hive fell silent. The collective mind that had controlled billions for centuries simply stopped, and for the first time in their existence, individual Velthari began to think for themselves. The Queen Eternal sent one final transmission. It reached every corner of the galaxy. Every species heard it. Every survivor witnessed it. "What have we done?" Her voice was broken, confused, almost childlike. "What have we done?" Then she fell silent forever. The war was over. 1 year later, Taiho Park stood on the observation deck of Unity Station. The massive structure orbited Nova Orani, a symbol of the new alliance. Ships from a dozen species came and went. Human freighters docked beside Orani cruisers and Fenari transports. Even a few Velthari vessels moved peacefully among them. The Velthari had changed. Without the hive, they had become individuals. Some had gone mad. Some had taken their own lives from guilt and horror, but others had learned to live. They had asked for forgiveness. They had offered to help rebuild what they had destroyed. It would take generations, but healing had begun. Hannah joined Taiho on the deck. She held a cup of coffee in her hands. "We did it," she said. "We actually did it." Taiho nodded slowly. "We were supposed to find a new home, a place for humanity to survive." He looked out at the stars. "Instead, we found a whole galaxy and a whole lot of trouble," Hannah added with a smile. "True," Taiho chuckled. "But we have always been good at trouble." Below them, on the station's main plaza, children were playing. Human children ran alongside Irani younglings. A Fenari teenager taught a group how to play a game with a ball. And in the corner, watching everything with curious eyes, a young Velthari hatchling took its first steps toward a new life. Naheen walked past them, her arm around Wujin's shoulders. She was laughing at something he said. Minji followed behind them, her face softer than it had been during the war. Junho sat on a bench, reading reports, but occasionally looking up to watch the children. Yunbi and Jiho stood apart from the others, near a window overlooking the planet below. They did not speak. They did not need to. They had seen the darkest corners of the galaxy together. They had faced death 100 times. Now they simply enjoyed the peace. Taiho watched them all. His people. His family. The galaxy had known terror for 300 years. It had known cruelty, slavery, and despair. Hope had been a forbidden word. Freedom had been a forgotten dream. But humanity had awakened. They had not asked for permission. They had not waited for a better time. They had simply opened their eyes and decided to fight. And in doing so, it reminded the galaxy of something it had forgotten. No darkness lasts forever. No tyrant rules eternally. As long as one person refuses to kneel, hope survives. Taiho raised his coffee cup toward the stars. "To the future," he whispered. Outside, the sun rose over Nova Orani, painting the sky in gold and blue. A new day was beginning. A new age was dawning, and humanity was finally home.